If you're absolutely sick of replaying every single detail from your relationship with a narcissist, going over every why and how without getting any closer to peace, this one's for you. Today, I'll show you 3 simple hacks that actually work to stop the endless mental replay so you can start feeling whole again. I'm going to share some tips today that you've probably never heard anywhere else. But before we jump in, I want to welcome you to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina, and I'm a toxic relationship recovery coach. If you think you've been in a relationship with a narcissist, I've got a free checklist that can help you see how your experience stacks up with the phases of narcissistic abuse. You'll find a link for that in the description. So first, let's get real about rumination. And listen, I know you're well aware that rumination is a problem. You've heard it a million times before. Stop replaying the same thoughts over and over in your head. As if that's easy, right? As if you can just flip a switch and turn them off. Nobody wants to be stuck in that endless cycle of questioning because it feels like there's no way out. There's no exit door. And even if you want to stop, it just feels so damn hard, doesn't it? It's like your mind seems to have a mind of its own, constantly pulling you back into the story of what happened, dissecting every detail, searching for answers that absolutely never come. But what does come? All of those feelings that you're stirring up in the meantime, all of those undesirable feelings that you don't want. It's kind of like you're bringing yourself back energetically into that moment where all that terrible stuff happened, when really you're probably just sitting there safe on your couch. But in those moments, it can feel like it's productive, like you're really trying to process and understand, because none of it makes sense and you really just desperately want to understand. You might even think, if I can just replay this conversation over and over, maybe, just maybe, I'll find a way to explain it to this person in a way that it finally clicks. But then, even when you explain it, you end up in the same place. That rumination didn't help you before, and it is not going to help you now. The truth is, rumination is the opposite of being productive. It keeps you trapped in the problem instead of moving towards a solution. And all that time and mental energy you're pouring into replaying the past, it's not actually helping you heal. So I want to invite you to start recognizing the difference between rumination and true processing. Rumination is always problem-focused, trying to make sense of the why and the what happened. Genuine processing is more solution-oriented. It's about exploring how you can grow, heal, and build a healthier future. So save that deeper processing, the kind you think you're doing when you're ruminating, save that for a guided session like therapy or coaching where you have support to help you through it. On your own, it's just way too easy to get lost in that endless spiral. And trust me, I know, because I've been there so many times before. So instead of going back to that, try to develop some quick, simple techniques to redirect your attention whenever you notice yourself going down that rumination rabbit hole. So maybe it's a few deep breaths or a grounding exercise to bring you back to the present moment. And one suggestion I give clients sometimes is to keep a rubber band around your wrist and snap it whenever you find yourself ruminating. That little pinch pulls you back into the present moment, even just for a split second. And from there, you get a moment to choose how you want to proceed instead of getting swept up in that thought spiral. And listen, this takes work. It takes consistent work. It's not necessarily easy. I know this. Rumination can almost feel addictive, like a bad habit that's hard to break. But I promise, the more you catch yourself and intervene, the more you'll move through those difficult thoughts and feelings. And that's where the real healing can begin. So the next tip I have for you is to pay attention to your body. And I know most of us aren't used to doing that unless there's an intense pain that demands your attention in that moment. But there are huge benefits to tuning into what your body's telling you, especially in moments of rumination. Instead of getting lost in the story of what happened, consciously tune in to the sensations in your body, what's going on here. So what are you feeling physically in this moment? Maybe there's a tightness in your chest or a fluttering in your stomach. Can you name those physical sensations? Can you put a feeling to it? Even if you can't fully explain the reasons behind them, the key is to detach from the narrative and just be present with the experience in your body. When you bring awareness to the physical manifestations of your trauma, you create an opportunity to process and release them instead of getting stuck in an endless rumination cycle. And if you're not used to doing this, it might feel uncomfortable at first. Our instincts are often to distract ourselves or to just ultimately avoid those unpleasant sensations, to stuff them down. But I encourage you to lean into them, even just for a minute or two. You can set a timer. Over time, you may find the feelings actually start to shift and change instead of staying stuck, which is what the story does. It keeps them stuck and it keeps those negative feelings that you don't want. It keeps them intensifying over and over the more you think about it. And think about it this way: when you're angry about something, the more you think about it, the angrier you get, right? And the same is true usually when you're sad about something, the more you think about it and the more you encourage it, it's kind of like you're feeding that fire, and that sadness, it gets bigger and bigger. So while we don't want to ignore big feelings, they're there for a reason. We want to instead honor them. So honor the feeling without the story. And from that grounded, embodied place, you can then begin the deeper work of healing and recovery. So when you make space to fully feel what's happening in your body, you open the door to true transformation instead of getting stuck in that endless loop. And the third tip I have for you is to start a mindfulness practice. Now, I know some of you feel like you've tried this already, and I get it. It can feel like mindfulness and meditation are being touted as the answer to virtually every problem under the sun. But the truth is, there's a lot of solid research backing the benefits of mindfulness, especially for emotional regulation and healing from trauma. Improved focus, reduced anxiety and depression, and better impulse control have all been linked to regular mindfulness practice. So, while it's not a cure all, mindfulness can be incredibly valuable in toxic relationship recovery. And the best part is you don't have to be a meditation master to start reaping the rewards. In fact, you can just start with mindfulness alone, which is related to meditation with a few slight differences. So, mindfulness is about being present and aware in the moment, observing what's happening around you and within you without getting caught up in judgment or stories. It's about grounding yourself in the here and now. Meditation, on the other hand, is a more formal practice where you're actively working to quiet the mind and cultivate a deep sense of relaxation. Meditation is more like a practice, and you could think of it like working a muscle, where over time it gets easier and easier. So it really is an exercise. But for a lot of people, the idea of sitting still and not really thinking much for a long time can feel intimidating or impossible. So if you've struggled with traditional meditation, just start with mindfulness instead. It's a gentler, more accessible way to train your attention and awareness. So maybe it's taking a few deep breaths and really noticing the sensations in your body as the air moves in and out. Or simply pausing to observe your surroundings with curiosity and without getting swept up in that inner narrative that tends to take over. And then from there, if you do want to explore meditation further, which I do recommend doing, there are some great tools out there if you feel like you need a little help. There are tons of great apps. You might even have a favorite. One I really like is an app called Muse, and it works along with a device that uses EEG technology to give you real-time feedback on your brain activity during meditation. So this is what it looks like. It's a headband with a sensor that you have to position just right. But there is an app that can help you with all that. And one of the things that's different about this, it's a little bit more advanced than a typical app, is that it gives you real-time feedback as you meditate. So as you're meditating, the sounds that you're meditating to change to reflect whether your mind has wandered or not. So you get that real-time feedback in the moment, which is pretty cool. And afterwards, you can also use the app to check your progress. So here's a screenshot of one of my meditations to give you an idea of how it works. For me, as someone who's often struggles to find the time to meditate and really the motivation to sit down and do it, it's really been a game changer because it makes meditation a little bit more fun. Oh, and also with the premium plan, it tracks your sleep in the same way that it tracks your meditation. So it'll give you a lot of feedback about what's going on while you're sleeping. So if you're interested in this one is the Muse S, and you can get 20% off for a limited time with the link in the description. But whether you use this device or another app, or you just sit quietly, meditation will will help you get a handle on rumination and those runaway thoughts over time. It does take some consistency and practice, but studies show that you do see results from meditation fairly quickly. So it's not something you need to invest years in before you start seeing results. But because it does take some investment, if you are willing to give meditation a try, I suggest committing to a minimum of 2 weeks. And I also suggest keeping a journal of your progress to see how it's working for you. So these tips should give you a really good foundation for healthy habits and also give you space to start healing from narcissistic abuse. But if you still have a narcissist in your life, you may need a little more distance. Am I right? It's so much harder to heal while you're still dealing with them, but it's possible. So, for some of my best tips on keeping them at bay while you focus on yourself, watch the video that just popped up on the screen. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, and I'll see you next time.